Hey, Oak Coast family, Pastor John here, bringing you the Touchpoint video this week. Today is September 21st, and our Points to Ponder article is titled, What is Evangelism? Part 1. The last couple of years at Oak Hills has been quite an encouragement to me in regards to evangelism. One of the great encouragements has been the privilege to see some of our own church family really seeking, desiring, and praying for opportunities to share the hope of the gospel with those around them. It has been a great honor to add some of your own family, friends, neighbors, and coworkers to my prayer list each day. It really has been my deepest joy to have conversations to pray with and to walk together as we desire for the people around us to come and know the deep, deep love of Jesus. And I've often come across many today who have a hard time defining what evangelism actually is, though. When it comes to evangelism and really anything, I found that it is important to understand what it is in order to seek to do it well. In the next few weeks, I plan to unpack Timothy Booger's helpful explanation about what evangelism is and what it is not from the first chapter of his book, Invitation to Evangelism, sharing the gospel with compassion and conviction. Booger brings three biblical terms that are associated with evangelism. The first is the Greek word euangelion, meaning the gospel or good news. The good news at the heart of Christianity is about who God is and how he has provided forgiveness and reconciliation in Christ Jesus for sinners. The second word associated with evangelism, the announcing of the good news, is the Greek word kerygma, meaning to proclaim. While the verb form of this word in the New Testament isn't always used to reference the proclamation of the gospel, it often is used in that context. We can catch a glimpse of this in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 21. For since in the wisdom of God, the world did not know God through wisdom, it pleased God through the folly of what we preach, or kerygma, to save those who believe. The third word associated with evangelism is the Greek word martyreo, meaning bearing witness. Booger writes, a witness is someone who brings first-hand testimony of what he or she has seen or heard or experienced. We catch a glimpse of this in Acts chapter 1, verse 8, when Jesus declares to his disciples that they will be his witnesses all over the world. So what now? Well, these three biblical terms help us begin thinking about evangelism, of which we will unpack the definition in the weeks to come. But for now, notice that at the heart of the task of evangelism is the proclaiming and sharing of the good news of Jesus Christ as those who have firsthand experienced the power of the gospel in our own lives. Lifeway Research had a recent study that showed some shocking numbers in regards to evangelism and Christians today. Here are some numbers for us to consider. 93% of Christians are at least somewhat open to having a conversation with a friend about the gospel. But only 64% of Christians have prayed in the last month that a friend or family member would put their trust in Jesus Christ. And only 53% of Christians have actually had a conversation about the gospel with a friend or family member in the last 6 months. What the study from Lifeway Research shows is that Christians in their daily lives have seemingly resorted to quite a passive approach to sharing the very hope that is within us with others. There seems to be an overwhelming majority in the openness to share the gospel with others, yet the percentage seems to drop drastically with actually sharing the hope of Christ with others or even praying for such opportunities. If we take seriously the three biblical terms associated with evangelism, this means that evangelism is much more than a passive and unintentional approach. It is easy for us to simply hope that our kind presence and kind actions will easily create gospel conversations. I'll add that when they do, we should praise the Lord for these, because our kind presence and kind actions should point to the reality of God's gracious saving work in the lives of his people. They are important to our witness of the gospel, but they should not be divorced from the good news, an announcement through words. We must be reminded that coming to faith in Christ is not merely caught, but is taught. For faith comes by hearing the word of Christ. We need the Spirit's help and strength in our proclamation of the gospel. Let us never forget that. The task of evangelism is not easy, even frightening. We aren't able to do it in our own strength and wisdom. So let us hold fast to the reminder that the task of evangelism is not a man-made methodology or tactic to fill seats in a building, but the very commission that Christ gives to his church. It is through the gospel that God is gathering and drawing to himself his scattered people throughout the ages. With this great commission, we do well to remember that the one who has saved us and sends us to proclaim his excellencies has all authority in heaven and earth given to him, and he will be with us to the end of the age. So let us pray, or let us together prayerfully and boldly share the hope that is in us as we depend on the Lord. Let us not boast in ourselves, but boast in Christ alone. Let God break our hearts for those who do not know him and who are currently walking in darkness. Let us pray with hope for our loved ones and friends who don't know Christ, because we know that God is gracious and is mighty to save. This concludes our Points to Ponder article for this week. I want to draw our attention to a few of the highlights that are happening in the life of Oak Hills this week. The first is that we've got a big church work day coming up this Saturday, September 23rd. The start time is at 8:30. Come and go as you are available. There will be indoor and outdoor projects. All are welcome. This will be a great time for the church working together on our beloved building here in Shawnee. If you've got any questions, please contact our deacon, Jason Mock, who is heading the charge on this one. That as well, you've probably heard the news that our church will be hosting Presbytery on September 29th and 30th. That'll be next Friday and Saturday. It's our privilege to do so, and we hope that we will be able to provide warm hospitality to our brothers from the Presbytery as we are arm in arm with them in gospel ministry together. It'll be a wonderfully glorious time together, and it's a privilege for us to serve and to host. And so everyone is welcome. It'll be once again Friday and Saturday. We will be starting with dinner, and we'll be starting with our worship service starting at 7 p.m. This is open for everyone. It would be great to see you and your families there to worship with us on Friday evening starting at 7. We'll be having Brian Chappell preach the word. Brian Chappell, and just a personal side note here is I feel deeply indebted to him as a preacher. It's in seminary in which his book deeply impacted me, and I feel like it's almost everyone in the PCA has learned how to preach, at least in some regards, from Brian Chappell. He is a preacher of preachers here in the PCA, and he is our stated clerk in our denomination. So it's a privilege to have him here. It would be great to see you all come and worship with us on that Friday evening. And once again, as business starts, this is open to all as well. So if you'd like to see how fun Presbyterianism can be, depending on your definition of fun, or if you just are curious of how Presbyterianism works in the nitty-gritties, feel free to join us for business on Friday and Saturday. Once again, as we are hosting, there are ways in which you can find yourself able to serve, that we might have a great sense of warm hospitality to our brothers from our presbytery. I believe there is a meal train, a potluck that has had a sign up. And so if you're able to or willing to provide a dish for one of those meals, there is a sign up for that. And if you have any questions on other ways you can maybe help, please feel free to reach out to our administrative assistant, Jerry Owens, as well. And you may have gotten that email, which was sent about a week ago as well from Jerry, that speaks about being able to help in serving during our time of hosting Presbytery. And so those are really the two big highlights for this week for you to consider. I hope that you have a great rest of the day and the great rest of the week. I look forward to being with you all again this coming Sunday to worship on the Lord's Day. Well, God bless.